It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley, and this is the Friday Show. Gary, how are you?
Doing good.
All right.
I cannot complain.
I can. I plan to do that over the next 5 hours.
Start out with some fun with an audio cut.
All right. What do you got?
Right. It's a Friday show, right? So we need some good entertainment.
Sure.
This is Dan Crenshaw, and this is the House, and Crenshaw leading the effort to block the Children's Hospital Graduate Medical Education Payment Program. And funding for children's hospitals that provide transgender treatments or procedures to minors. Now, we talked about this yesterday, that you've got the Democrats wanting to push where hospitals will not be funded if they, do not provide surgery for, mutilation surgery and hormone treatments to children. And so you've got Dan Crenshaw, one of the people that's railing against it. He had a witness who is a doctor, apparently, by the name, shares my last name. No relation. Yeah. But this is just hilarious. Talk about being unprepared. All right, here we go. This starts out with Crenshaw making some comments, and then they go back and forth on it. And then the end is just pure greatness. It's funny because I just when playing it during our pre-show meeting, and I loved your laugh. All of a sudden, you just burst out laughing over there.
Oh, I think I was laughing at something else, but no, this is funny.
Okay, because it was like right at that point. When he said I thought you were laughing. We hadn't discussed this. And all of a sudden, you just burst out laughing. So here we go.
We keep hearing this is a politicized issue. This is a manufactured culture war. I got to say, we aren't the ones who did that. We aren't the ones that came up with this radical new movement that is performing permanent physiological changes to children with no evidence of any benefits. We didn't start that. We're just trying to stop it because it's crazy. It's a contentious issue, which almost 70% of Americans oppose. So we are just saying here that taxpayer money shouldn't be used for it. That's all. This should not be that controversial of an issue. The questions are for Dr. McNamara. I just want to ask you, honestly, you're not concerned about the unknown effects of puberty blockers, hormones, and surgical interventions in kids, the long-term effects. Not concerned about that.
Everything I've said here today comes from a place of deep honesty and conviction for the care that I provide and the community that I'm a part of.
You've said that we've cherry-picked data. How do you mean that?
So it is very unscientific and flawed to pick a single study or a single statistic and to discuss it in isolation.
Totally agree.
Medical experts are able to talk about all of the evidence as a whole.
Totally agree. So it's good to look at systematic reviews, right? That's the gold standard of evidence when you're trying to understand whether something works or whether it doesn't. So the British Journal of Medicine looked at 61 systematic reviews with the conclusion that, quote, there is great uncertainty about the effects of puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and surgeries in young people. Journal of Endocrine Society came up with the same conclusion, even the American Academy of Pediatrics. They all cite the lack of evidence. And so here's the thing. If you're doing a therapy, and it's, temporary, whatever, fine, maybe let's try it. Let's see if it works. But when you're talking about permanent physiological changes, do you not agree, just from an ethical standpoint, that you might want extremely strong evidence of the benefits? And there is no systematic review that states that there is strong evidence of benefits.
Sir, are you aware of how the quality evidence grading system works and how it's applied?
Yeah, we've read through it. That's why I'm citing these journals. So which journal says something different? We should have that debate. Tell me a journal that has done systematic reviews that cites different evidence, that cites strong evidence for benefits of these therapies.
The standards of care were developed based on extensive...
You're not telling me any journal. You're not telling me any study. Don't say standards of care.
Yeah. So...
tell me one.
The standards of care.
That's the standards of care. That's not a journal. That's not a study. That's not an organization. That's not an institution. You're just saying words. Name one study. I'm out of time.
Can't name the study, can you? Because it doesn't exist.
Just amazing.
I'm not even a doctor, and I know that genital mutilation surgery for children is wrong. You're sick if you think it's right. There's something wrong with you if you think it's okay.
As he said, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And no,
crazy's being kind.
No, I'm not embarrassed that she shares my last name because it really
no need to be.
No. Yeah,
I know a company that makes crappy motorcycles. What am I going to do about it? I look forward to your email. It's just a joke. Calm down.
That along, and we'll play the Biden cut later on. What a stupid question.
Yeah.
When someone asked him about it's really amazing because you can tell he's panicking. They won't think about this. He's not even coming out and saying, look, this is all false. He's just saying he's deflecting or calling you stupid. The White House has to be panicking, and Democrats have to be panicking big time on this right now, just because of the responses of the president. As we talked about yesterday, and it's really, really important to understand this, that what sets the Biden scandal apart from any other scandal in politics right now is that none of it came from the opposition.
No.
Everything that Biden is facing right now is not allegations that came from the Republicans with a lack of evidence. All of it came, as we know, either from Hunter Biden and his laptop, or from the FBI investigation of Hunter and Joe Biden. None of it has come. None of it was started by the Republicans. This wasn't the Democrats screaming, Trump colluded with the Russians, and we found out. Oh, and by the way, that was really interesting because there was, it's just too long to play. It's almost a half hour, but it was basically Dick Durbin, Kennedy, and Lindsey Graham, going back and forth on it. It was a very civil conversation, but we'll play portions of it. But, they were, it was very low key. You could actually, when I'm watching this, I'm like, oh, okay. This is what they say, the House, they'd be screaming at each other, and here the deliberative body, the Senate, and they were all talking in low tones. Even Durbin was. And it's like, wow, Durbin's got nothing here. But he was saying, well, we need to wait. We don't know whether these things are true. And Kennedy made the great point. He just said, well, look, this comes from the FBI. It exists. They're the ones that've been holding it. They're the ones that, have claimed it didn't exist. We simply want to know, are they investigating it? And he said, this is, and Lindsey Graham saying the same thing, this is all fair. There's nothing unfair here. We didn't come up with these allegations. We just didn't throw them out.
Why would you not want it investigated?
Right. This came from the FBI, who's been hiding it. He said, if the FBI has looked at it and said there's nothing there, we simply want to know, what their process was. This is all reasonable when you take the Hunter laptop and everything that has gone on there, and the fact that, the Democrats attempted to hide that, and the media attempted to hide that, and then we see the FBI's hiding it. It is not, and they kept using the word unreasonable. It's not unreasonable to ask the question, and say, what do you have or what don't you have? And then Kennedy, I think it was Kennedy, even came out and just said, by the way, it's so weird. I've been in this business too long because I keep saying Kennedy, and it's relating to a Republican. And maybe nobody else, unless you're my age, relates to it, but it's like, it's just weird. But Kennedy was just, being extremely, and kept using the word reasonable. This is all just reasonable. Let us know what the investigation. He said, my God, he said, Comey was giving information constantly on the investigations of both Trump and then Hillary Clinton.
Well,
in fact,
it's real simple. You've got, if you're a Democrat, there are two good reasons, two possible outcomes here. The first of which is that all these allegations are false and the current president isn't compromised. And the worst of the outcomes is the current president took a bribe. There's your spectrum. So if you believe nothing happened, because we keep hearing that, well, we don't know if it. You know how you find out? I know how you find out. You look into it.
Yeah.
This is not that hard. And when we see the FBI director first say, well, no, I don't know this document. We've seen the document. Oh, yeah, here's the document. I mean, when you see all of this, it is clear that there's a cover-up. We know why there's a cover-up. But we have oversight on Capitol Hill for a reason. So if you're a Democrat who believes there is nothing there, great. Vet the entire thing and then show the American people how stupid the GOP is.
And the other thing is, it's not unreasonable when you know that the financial documents are there that, for example, do you think that if it was, and I'll use a scandal-plagued state when it comes to governors, if any governor of Illinois Come on,
pick that state randomly.
Come on, come on, everybody listening on WLS and WROK. Come on, I mean, you know, I had to use this as an example. I had no choice. But if they were, if their families were being enriched to millions and millions of dollars, do you believe that the Chicago Sun-Times, the TV stations, the Rockford Register-Star, just to throw that out just for the heck of it, because I mentioned Rockford and WROK, do you think that they would be investigating and that would be a story as to why the governor's family was making tens of millions of dollars from foreign governments?
Right.
Do you think that would be a story? And that would, and I'm using use the governors because when these things happen, they become big stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's the other thing. Is it unreasonable when there is no business? Because as we know, the Democrats did not feel and do not feel it's unreasonable to look at the Trump industries and businesses and question whether there is a conflict of interest, but we do know that they have legit businesses.
Yeah.
So if it's reasonable for Democrats to say we need to monitor that, is it unreasonable for Republicans to say when a presidential family is in no business that anyone knows of and receives tens of millions of dollars in foreign funds from companies relating to foreign governments, should that be investigated? And I bet you if you took the names out of it and just put it in that scenario for any generic president, you'd have close to 95 to 99% of Americans saying, yes, that should be investigated. That is not unreasonable. Right. And it's not unreasonable when you find out the FBI has a document stating no bribes were taken.
Yeah.
And that's the point they were trying to make. I'm like, they're doing a solid point in a very, very mellow back and forth. And, Durbin really couldn't come up with anything except, well, let's let them do their job and, all that typical stuff.
Has any Democrat, since the document came to Capitol Hill, has any Democrat said this didn't happen? I know some of the media are saying, some of the left media are saying there's nothing there, even still. But is anyone on Capitol Hill saying that?
No, not
Democrats?
And not even Raskin. I mean, Raskin lied. He got caught in the lie saying that Bill Barr stopped the investigation.
Yeah, because I don't remember seeing that.
No, I haven't seen that yet either. No.
I know some of the media are still trying to play defense for the president, but, I mean, that's just a weak attempt. Where else are you going to go?
So you could tell Biden's getting irked because there he was. I mean, good God, the big presentation of we're going to make sure all ticket prices show that. That's what they're, with everything going on. That's what they're That's what they're throwing out that they're concerned with. I'm like, wow. And so the question comes up, and you could just see he was so irritated that it came up. But what do you expect?
Yeah.
What do you expect?
It's going to be everywhere.
Yeah.
It's going to be everywhere.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Every driver knows the cost of replacing tires is a major expense. What if you could save on tire costs without sacrificing performance or safety? Consider retreads, a sustainable, cost-effective way to rack up your miles. When talking retreads, sometimes there's worry when it comes to wear. But just because the tread is worn on a tire doesn't mean the casing is. Quality casings can far outlive their original tread. And once they're on your vehicle, the tread on a retread can last just as long or longer than the tread on a new tire. The key to preserving casings, whether new or retreaded, is regular tire maintenance checks. This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So there it is. According to multiple U.S. government officials interviewed as part of a lengthy investigation by Public and Racket. This was from Substack, Michael Schellenberger, Matt Taibbi, and Alex Gutentag. According to U.S. government officials, as part of a lengthy investigation by Public and Racket, the first people infected by coronavirus, patient 0, included Ben Hugh, a researcher who led the World Health Organization's gain-of-function research. The Wuhan virus, the Wuhan lab, gain-of-function research on SARS-like coronaviruses, which increases the infectiousness of viruses. Now answers increasingly look within reach. Sources within the U.S. government say 3 of the earliest people to become infected with SARS-CoV were all members of the Wuhan lab suspected to have leaked the pandemic virus. We had talked about this yesterday, but just at the end of the show.
Well, it's, exactly what everybody surmised based on the information that we had for a long time. But remember, if you put this on social media, for the longest time, it would get you kicked off.
As such, not only do we know that there were the Wuhan scientists who had developed the COVID-19-like illnesses in November of 2019, but also that they were working with the closest relatives of SARS-CoV-2 and inserted gain-of-function features unique to it. When a source was asked how certain they were, the answer, 100%.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. think about this as we get closer. We talk about in any story, what direction a story is going in, and the direction of the story of the lab leak has only gone in one direction.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, and I think this is where the seriousness comes in, when you think about the fact that the government and the media wanted to hide what is seemingly now the truth. We're getting closer that everything keeps leading in that one direction. And as we said, even if it ends up not being the truth, it was simply another theory.
Mm-hmm.
When the first theory was not proven, that it came from nature or the fish market or whatever. As we stated, well, the news always, you talk about hypotheticals all the time. Could it come from here? Could it come from there? Think about this. They shut it down completely. They shut it down. If you brought it up, you could be banned from social media if you brought up the lab leak. There was a complete censoring from the government on it. Now that we look at it and you look at the money angle, because that's what people will look at. What's the money angle?
Right.
Why did Fauci do what Fauci did? On everything with COVID, whether it was this, and this is where you look into the money angle because of what his position was, and the government funding that they wanted to continue, because that's the point that we would all look at. Well, why would they want to shut down the lab leak? Well, because it could hurt their funding in the future.
Right.
So you're not actually interested in the truth. And then the claim is you're the chief medical officer being straight with Americans about COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Yet you weren't being straight about it. So what did you do? Because of the money angle and you want the funding, lets us just censor anything that is not the official theory that we hold, which, by the way, won't affect future funding.
Even late in the game, and it was really late in the game, I think it was toward the end of Fauci's reign, maybe right before he retired, there was a liberal media article. New study shows there's little doubt in the wet market theory. They just keep trying over and over again to make sure that it's not about the lab leak. I don't know why you would want to cover this up. Unless you're somebody like Fauci, if you have no ownership in this at all, then you should want the truth. Because what you can't say is, well, it will never happen again. And the reason you can't say that is because we found the cause and we are going to make sure it never happened again. You've never done that. I know how you can find the truth. I know. Look. Once again. Not that hard.
No.
But there's been this, well, no, we're not going to look. It shut the entire world down. It's worth looking at.
And isn't it interesting because you take that's a huge story out there, and it's like, yeah, but we're past that. We shouldn't be looking back. And then if you notice Biden the last couple of weeks, look, this happened years ago. This was 2020 when this came out. Who really cares? We're talking about when Biden was vice president. It no longer is applicable. Yeah, it is. And it's applicable because now he's president of the United States. And if he was compromised as vice president and was willing to do that, he needs to be impeached.
It could be compromised right now.
Right.
He's the current commander-in-chief. He's not sitting somewhere watching the sunset. I mean,
Well, he may be.
Well, there's no telling what he's looking at. I can't tell, actually. He's squinting or has dark glasses on, one or the other. But, with the lab leak thing, COVID killed so many of the elderly that it was a seismic shift in Social Security. Think about that.
Yeah, moved it a year at least. Which is a lot when you think, because when you look at where it is right now.
In a relatively short period of time.
Yeah.
And families don't deserve answers? I had a friend who was in a hospital for over 3 months. Daughter and his only child and his wife couldn't visit. And he died in that hospital. A young guy. 43. And that's not worth pursuing? We're not talking about a couple of deaths which would still be worth pursuing. We're talking about millions of deaths around the world. And it's not worth pursuing?
And when you look at everything, when you look at how the Democratic Party has focused so much on disinformation, and disinformation must be stopped.
Yeah. We're going to have our disinformation czar.
Well, exactly.
Remember that horrible attempt?
Right. The disinformation czar, because we are the ones that are telling you the truth.
The person who was one of the top people that was responsible for disinformation is who they chose to be that czar.
Exactly.
That's where they were going.
But this is where you get into everything that the Democrats do. When they say something, it's the opposite.
Yep.
When you look at the border is secure, how long we live with that one, everybody knows.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at a biological male can be a biological female,
right.
So they should be able to play sports if they say so. If you look at the fact of the anti-racist movement, which is actually a racist movement, and so you look at
inflation. For a minute, they tried to sell it and say it was a good thing because it meant people that were spending more money.
Yep. And then the two biggest bombshells of them all was where we have to censor the Hunter Biden laptop because it's disinformation.
Right.
And we have to censor and not allow any other theory except the theory that we can't prove, because neither theory could they prove.
And tell me where they haven't weaponized the FBI. Think about this. They weaponized the FBI and who they sent to the offices of the social media companies on the laptop. They weaponized the FBI when parents issue concerns at school board meetings. They weaponize the FBI at every turn.
In order to shut, but you think about it, why? In order to intimidate you and shut you up from what? Telling the truth.
Telling the truth.
And so the FBI was used in order to promote the fact that we need to stop disinformation. So if you're involved in disinformation, well then, you're a domestic terrorist. And so you get to the point of everything that they have done is try to censor the truth.
Yep.
And then they are the ones that sit out there and claim, we need to stop this disinformation, yet they are the big. There is no bigger purveyor of disinformation than the left in government.
No, there isn't.
And they're the ones that have the power
and the enforcement.
That have used that power to do what? To censor the truth.
Shut you down and hide the truth and bury the truth over and over again.
And it's just amazing because the biggest stories, COVID and corruption, influence peddling in the White House. And that's what and then you see the FBI doing right now. What's the FBI trying to do now? The FBI is the management of the FBI is attempting to not allow the American public to see the truth, which is the document.
Right.
Now, how much of the document is actually the truth? That's not the point. But the document exists. They didn't want you to know that the document existed. Everything is about hiding the truth from you, and then they claim they're the ones that are in power to stop disinformation, yet they're the ones that are, again, the biggest purveyors of the disinformation and lies in our society today. Because look at the two biggest stories. COVID's the biggest story. And they tried to censor any critical thinking analysis as to what really, really happened. And if you got in their way, and if you said what they're doing is wrong, the Great Barrington Declaration, remember that?
Oh, yeah.
They would demonize and do everything they could to destroy you, just like in the liberal transgender activist movement. Everything is about either you toe the line or we destroy your life.
Yep.
You will be punished
Yep.
for not believing in our narrative, and whether it's the truth or not doesn't matter. We will stop you from doing it. And I think it's really important that when these things happen, when we see where this is moving now, with the story over the last couple of days. By the way, the Democrats have been awfully quiet on that one, haven't they? Mm-hmm. Since that one's come out.
Yeah.
And so it's very, very important that we bring up and people understand every single time what this government has done, what the left in the government has done over the last 5 to 10 years, the where they have evolved, where they have moved to, what their goal is. And their goal is not to serve you. Their goal is to serve themselves and their narrative, even when their narrative is, number one, delusional or a lie. And it's across the board.
It is.
It's every single issue. It's not one issue. It's every single issue they're BSing you on. And if you don't agree with the BS, we're going to destroy you.
Yep.
And so finally, I'm just happy, and I know you are too, that people are finally fighting back.
Yeah. No, that's encouraging. Most definitely.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. I'm sorry, I'm just chuckling here. Just Joe Biden. Just reading the headline. Joe Biden snaps when asked about big guy reference. Dumb question. Not really.
No, it's not.
No, not a dumb
That was
question.
a dumb answer.
No, a dumb statement would be we're going to build a train across the Pacific and the Indian Ocean. That was a dumb comment.
Yeah.
By the way, that got blown up yesterday. We'd seen it. It was like hit the news yesterday. It was like, what the hell's he talking about?
Seriously. It's every single time now.
I know.
Try and figure out what he said. I mean, this is why Jill is going to take the lead in the campaign at a couple of stops. You just don't want him out in public. You don't. And by the way, many people are going to learn that the First Lady is Jill Biden. Who's she?
Yeah,
that's his wife. Really? No, it's insane. And there's no fix for this in terms of his inability to hold a coherent thought. I don't know how you do that in a debate. Honestly, by the time we get to next year, there's going to have to be at least, 3 debates?
Yeah, just think about it. We are a year and 3 months from any debate that would happen between the Democrats and the Democrat nominee and the Republican nominee.
Right.
Wow, that's a long time.
That's a long time. That's a long time.
Can we take a year vacation and then come back? Or can we take a 13, 14-month vacation and then come back?
I think that's what Biden's hoping to do.
No, you guys can't do it. Biden's already doing it.
Wake me up before the first debate. Yeah. Yeah, because I would love to be able to fast forward to that time because I can't wait to see that. Oh, my gosh. What a soup show that's going to be. Whew. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Because you don't get notes. You don't get a prompter.
No.
Oh, man, it's not going to be good.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across the USA and around the planet Earth, even where there are 8-foot-tall aliens.
It didn't happen.
We are.
If you don't have
Red
a
Eye
camera,
Radio.
2 adolescents in the home,
You know
and
what
nobody had a camera.
you know what I like, and I think it was National Review had a column on it that was talking about this is a psyop from the government that that it's the government feeding this whistleblower who hasn't seen anything himself false information to take, basically to take people's minds off everything that's going on. The government says there are aliens, and they actually have aliens. It's like it's a psyop going on. That's all. That's all it is. They're trying to change the topic because the whistleblower does not say, "I've seen the evidence." It's just people have told me. And so it's just, or giving me a document that says it. It's like, you notice how that story went nowhere?
Well, and in the interview, it's like, so we have alien ships? Yeah. How many? A lot. And it was like, that's not an answer. That doesn't sound like somebody with intel. Yeah.
It's like, okay, this is another distraction.
Yeah.
And then you would have to ask the question then, here's the thing. Nobody's asked Biden. Has anybody asked Biden that question? Hey, you're president. Do these UFOs exist?
Well, here's the thing. You saw a 10-foot tall guy, a really tall guy with a big mouth in your backyard. There's a lot of those. LeBron James. Really tall guy with a big mouth. I'm not saying LeBron James was in your backyard, but you got to pare that down. Hey, where's the camera?
Wait a minute. Wasn't Michael Jordan an alien in Men in Black?
Was Michael Jordan an alien? And that was
I'm
he one
trying
of
to
them?
think if it was one of the aliens.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Michael,
but I do think
Michael Jackson was. I remember Michael Jackson.
But he actually is or was an alien, so there's nobody actually even trying to dispute that one. Let's be clear.
I got to tell you this. Yesterday, I'm just going through one of my free channels, and all of a sudden, I'm just going through all the movies, and all it says the artificial intelligence. I went, oh, what's this? Artificial intelligence. What? I'm like, what? And it's the movie from the 80s. Remember the movie Daryl?
Yeah.
It was the movie.
And it was an acronym for something. Daryl was an acronym for something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's the little kid who's, artificial. What's it? Michael McKean, is it from Laverne and Shirley, who was, Lenny? Not Squiggy, Lenny.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
His best role. But if AI is like the little kid, we're okay.
Right.
He hits a baseball a long way.
Yeah.
And he's a loving creature.
Yeah, until he grows up. and becomes Mitt Romney. Then we're doomed.
I'll never forget. And I don't know whether Tim Allen has ever listened to this show or not, but when Last Man Standing was on that one time, and people that don't know, Eric for years has said, Romney's a robot. Romney's a robot.
I'm still convinced he's a robot.
He's really a robot. He's really a robot.
He is.
And that one time I was sitting there watching Last Man Standing, Tim Allen, and it was, I can't remember the actress's name, his youngest daughter, was really, really, they were all great. I mean, they were, what great actors in that. And even though it was, I know probably the left didn't like it because of the shots but I thought it was I thought they did such a much better job than Roseanne ever did of really
sounding like a normal family.
Sound like a normal family talking about politics and the disagreements that go on with the neighbors.
Dad's going to be watching Fox News, and the kids are going to be doing something else, and and Dad's going to take his jabs at the left, and that's just, I mean, that's more indicative, more, I think, a representation of actual families than just about anything that was on TV in terms of the political setting in the household.
But there they are driving, and he turns to his daughter and he says, well, Romney is a robot. Oh, I lost it. And it wasn't even because the line itself was so funny.
Right.
It's because you had said it so many times. Yeah. And I always think one of the best ones I ever saw of Last Man Standing was when the next door neighbor, who was black, he comes over to the house, and Tim's wife is talking about, and by the way, I can't think of the actress's name who played Tim's wife. Remember, she was also in So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Just can't think of her name. Yeah. But she's talking about, and this is, Hillary Clinton running. Mm-hmm. And it's like, we need a woman. 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 We need a woman.
Yeah.
We need a woman. And so the neighbor comes over, and she said, yeah, I'm telling my daughters that they need to vote for Hillary Clinton. And the younger daughter's like, no. I'll vote for the right woman. I'm not going to vote for that woman. And so Chuck, who's the next door neighbor who's black, comes over, and she said, I'm trying to get the daughters to vote, because, for a woman, because it's time we have a woman. She goes, well, you know what I'm talking about.
By the way, that's a pretty daring line to put in a show.
It really was. But his response was great. Even though I disagreed with the response, it was still a great response. Because he said, what? Well, you're talking Obama? Well, I didn't vote for Obama because he was black. Mm-hmm. I voted for Obama because he was the best candidate. And it was great because it's like, okay, you can't get angry at it because it was a great point. Yeah. You don't vote for somebody just because of their sex and race, was his comment, even though he did make the wrong decision in voting for Obama. But, yeah, that was but, yeah, so the artificial intelligence, when I I watched like 5 minutes of it, I went, okay, this is really a 80s B movie.
Yeah.
But it caught my attention there for a moment, and I went, okay.
There was an article that said there's a bunch of AI-created junk for sale on Etsy. So people are using AI to design, these little signs and whatever they sell, in their little Etsy store. And one of them looked really robotic. I mean, it looked like the old the graphics from Pong, the first video game. I mean, it was really bad, but I think it was intentional. I think the Etsy seller actually promoted that this is all AI created stuff, so it was supposed to look robotic, and the graphics were supposed to look that way. But it was funny. I think what's interesting here is that you're seeing all this come together at a time when there's so much misinformation. Then you throw AI out, and someone made the great observation recently that said, well, AI is just taking the information, even wrong information, and collecting it and doing and following through with a directive to the best of its ability. Mm-hmm. If you look at Chat GPT, that kind of approach is basically just directing it to round up stuff on the internet and do something with it. But it could be wrong.
Yeah.
It can round up false information and do that. And, the whole world seems to be losing their mind.
Well, the media is.
Yeah. No, I think that's it's a media-driven thing. I do believe that, yeah.
What I like, speaking of the media, was, and I've got a couple of audio cuts here, Biden yesterday, at the hearing about transparency in ticket prices.
Yeah.
Where the entire ticket price will be there.
Getting stuff done.
And the media doesn't care about this.
No.
And if you've noticed, he's got a group of people, with him, advocates for transparency in ticket prices that nobody is talking about, because it's not the transparency in ticket prices that people are really concerned with. It's the surcharge of the tickets.
Yeah.
So actually, if you give we talked about the same thing with the airline tickets, that when the Democrats came out and said, we want full transparency, you are going to get the full price. Full price will be there, where airlines used to sit there and say, okay, here's your price.
Right.
This is your price. This is what we're charging you. And then when you go to check, buy your ticket, then all the surcharges and government fees come up.
Right.
And so you and I were like, well, that's great transparency, because I can see precisely
what I'm paying for
and how much of my money is going there. And they're like, well, we don't want the public to see that. So their transparency was actually the opposite.
Yeah.
Because you really got and with the ticket price, you talk about transparency. When you see the ticket price is $100 and your final price is $150, and it's like, well, you don't see that at the end, and so they're not being transparent. What do you mean? They're being totally transparent. I'm looking at that going, I go, oh my God, $35 for a processing fee for a ticket that I get online? So what's the purpose? What's the purpose of it? So we've always said, well, we can make the opposite argument, that you're actually not being transparent, because the fury at the end when you see the original low price and then you see what the ticketing processing fee is from whoever is doing it, whether it's, I can't think of the big one out there. Ticketmaster, yeah. Or the fees, for, as I call it, aftermarket, StubHub and things like that.
Third party.
And then people get angry at it. They're furious. Well, that's the entire point. You have, at that point, when people are livid, you have transparency. They recognize, what the actual cost is. But the White House is trying to make this as a big to-do, and none of the reporters care about this at all.
No.
They just don't care about it. And so, here's one of the questions. And again, there are a few shotted questions, but the one that comes through is you hear a reporter said, why did the Ukraine FBI informant file refer to you as the big guy? And then Biden, and there's people talking, but then you can hear him say, well, why'd you ask such a dumb question? But here it is. All right, here we go.
Why did the Ukraine FBI informant file refer to you as the big guy? Why is that term particularly applied? Thank you very much. Thanks, guys.
Why'd you ask such a dumb question?
There he is. Why'd you ask such a dumb question? And everybody surrounding him looks as uncomfortable as you could possibly be. And then the next one is, well, what would you like Blinken to achieve in China, sir? And you can see it. This is more of a close-up shot where you hear, ending hidden junk fees. Well, you're not ending the junk fees, and you're not ending them, and they weren't hidden. You saw them at the end when you checked out, and they would be itemized what you had to pay for the processing fee. But they think they're doing this great thing that America cares about, and the reporters could care less. But so here's another question, and he gets a little bit irked. Well, that's not what we're here for. So here we go.
Yeah.
Mr. President, can you tell us what you want Blinken to achieve in China, sir? What would you like Blinken to achieve in China, sir?
Yes, I've spoken with him, and we'll talk about that later. That's not what this is about.
And on the cyber attack today, sir? Can you say anything about the cyber attack today for us?
No.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
And then when they realize they're not going to get a question on ending hidden junk fees, it's like, all right, everybody out, everybody out, everybody.
Yeah.
You can hear them going, everybody out.
Right.
They're getting them out.
How dare you not care?
And you could but the looks on the people next to him, the people sitting next to him after they had this discussion on ending junk fees, look as uncomfortable as you could possibly get, because nobody in the media has any interest in, while they're there, what they care about is, the big issues, including bribery.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Come on, big guy. Hey, big guy, would you answer a question? I want somebody to address him as big guy. See if he turns his head.
I'm really upset that they're referring that this scandal, this the whole bribe allegation, has anything to do with Mr. Carlson from WKRP.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very upset about that.
Mm-hmm. For those under 80,
WKRP was a show
yeah,
from, 78 to 81 or 82, something like that.
something like that. Yeah.
We had 4 years.
Yeah. I'm waiting for a reporter to address him as a big guy. See if, as he's walking away. Hey, big guy, I can do more push-ups than you.
Pete Ducey will each give you $10 if you do that.
Challenge him to a push-up contest. Please, somebody, challenge him to a push-up contest.
Somebody wrote me yesterday referring to him as Izzy Mandelbaum, and I realized we haven't done that in a while.
It has been a minute.
Izzy,
for sure.
The Izzy Mandelbaum comparison from Seinfeld. For those of you under 70, Seinfeld is a show that ran from 1989 to 1998. Giddy up.
A now banned, if some on the left have their way.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Seinfeld needs to be banned. They weren't good human beings.
I guess I'll have to go underground and watch Seinfeld then, if that ever happens.
Giddy up.
Giddy up.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Most owner-operators leased to larger carriers are paid on a per-mile basis or a percentage of revenue per load. The per-mile basis is most prevalent among larger fleets, percentage at smaller. Pay per mile tends to dominate discussions about pay just because it's easier to measure, and pay per mile often is wrongly used as the deciding factor in leasing to a carrier. While pay per mile can be a vital factor, it's not a cure for every ill, nor does it mean a big settlement check is coming an owner-operator's way. Why? Because pay per mile always must be considered in balance with gross revenue as well as total costs. Gross revenue can include flat mileage pay that varies by length of haul, percentage revenue pay, and more. Most importantly, though, for every revenue dollar generated, only part of that dollar is profit. But for every extra dollar of cost saved, the entire dollar contributes to profit. Knowing and understanding your cost to operate is fundamental to understanding the true value of any pay package. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Shell Rotella with advanced synthetic technology. For more information, go to overdriveonline.com to the Overdrive's Partners in Business section of the website for more detail on Business 101 and many other topics.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know, on yesterday's show, we had played the audio cut of Biden saying that the U.S. plans to build a railroad. This is a quote, has plans to build a railroad from the Pacific all the way across the Indian Ocean, end of quote. Mm-hmm. And everybody's like, what the hell is he talking about?
Yeah.
I mean, it was completely a delusional moment for him. And the GOP responded. They put out a tweet yesterday. Last night, Biden announced the U.S. has plans to build a railroad from the Pacific all the way across the Indian Ocean, a modern engineering marvel forever memorialized in the White House transcript. Of course, that's completely absurd, and it's not worth even exploring. Far more troubling are these erratic, brazen untruths and bizarre asides that have defined Biden's presidency. Biden has been a shameless liar his entire life, but Americans clearly agree the problems run far deeper. In fact, a significant majority of Americans, including 7 in 10 independents, say Biden's mental fitness is a real concern, while just 32% believe Biden has the mental sharpness it takes to serve effectively as president. When the president of the United States announces an 8,000-plus mile railroad spanning a miles-deep ocean, something that has not now or ever been under consideration, Americans have every reason to be concerned.
Yeah.
And that's the point. You know, people say, well, you should make fun of him. He has cognitive problems. His family and the Democratic Party completely deny that's the case.
Exactly.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know, we were talking about it the other day, Wheel of Fortune, and then we started talking about Jeopardy.
Yeah. Hallowed. What is hallowed?
That hallowed show. You know, they may have to end Jeopardy. They may have to end these game shows where they ask you, basically they're asking you questions, because apparently we're becoming an ignorant society. Even beyond that, the Fox Story Jeopardy producer asked fans to forget painful episode ever happened, but they're talking about a number of questions that there have been over the last couple of weeks, 23 triple stumpers where nobody rang the bell on questions. But the one that really just blew people out of the water, New York Post starts the story, oh, Lord. One seemingly simple answer prompt has gotten 3 Jeopardy contestants in hot water with fans as they failed to correctly finish the Lord's Prayer. The clue that had all 3 contestants stumped, Our Father, which art in heaven, and they have that in quotes then, this be thy name.
What is hallowed?
What is hallowed, exactly. All 3 contestants stood awkwardly in their place, evidently not knowing the answer.
Well, even in the secular world, that's been put in, I don't know how many different movies, TV shows. You would at least know that part of it. And if you're an Iron Maiden fan, you've known that part of it since 1982.
Just like fans of the game were not happy with the contestants as they deemed it was an easy clue. That's hallowed, you heathens. A Jeopardy fan, Lindsay Wilcox, live tweeted during the show. They're going to...
Yeah.
Hey, Jeopardy geniuses, it's hallowed. Jeez, what a sad world we live in. How can all 3 adults who made it to be contestants on the show not at least know the start of the Lord's Prayer?
Yeah.
Wow.
By the way,
and they show still pictures of like the 3 contestants like in a totally confused state.
Yeah. I may be personally and solely responsible if Seacrest takes over Pat Sajak's job.
Yeah, you did say that.
So
yeah.
Sajak, it was a couple of years ago, and I just happened to be on Twitter at the very moment he tweeted, hey, trying to win a bar bet. I'm still the host of Wheel of Fortune, right? And I replied, like, instantly, no, Seacrest is. And he replied to me, dang it, as in I lost the bar bet. So I planted the seed, apparently.
Because his name came up.
Yeah. Yeah, according to reports. Who knows who will actually end up being that. I don't know. I don't see Seacrest in that role. I don't know who I see there. Steve Harvey on Family Feud is very funny. He's so funny. But if you're going to replace a Pat Sajak, the demographics for that show are older than Family Feud, but they don't have to be, right? If you want to change the demographics, bring in some younger viewers, maybe you change it up and go with a younger comedian, or I don't know. Seacrest seems like a boring choice.
interesting you mentioned Steve Harvey because I saw him on just a clip from Comedians in Cars with Coffee with Seinfeld.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And did you see where he said I forgot what the joke was, but he had to apologize for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Seinfeld said, "You don't apologize for anything." And he said, "I have to because I have another job."
Yeah.
He said, "If I was a comedian, just a comedian, I would have
when
never
you're a
apologized."
Host, it's different.
Said, but when he said, "I'm a game show host," and Jerry's still like, "No, you never apologize for a joke.
Yeah,
it's a joke.
Right.
You never apologize."
Right.
I just wouldn't you love to have, and not even about if I met Seinfeld, the last thing I'd be talking to him about is his show. I'd want to know.
Yeah.
I'd want to know where he stands on the issues, and I probably would have to say, okay, this is off the record. But where do you stand on all these issues here? Because you can sense that he's a no BS kind of person. And you and I were talking about the other day when a couple of comedians on, talking about, well, people come up and, and bother me and how
Zach Galifianakis is one of them.
Yeah. And he's just like, stop it.
Yeah.
You're out in public. What do you expect?
Right. People are going to take pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're going to come up to you. There were a couple of jokes. In fact, I can think of at least 4 episodes where they made jokes and then they joke about, no, we'll take that out later. And they clearly left it in because it's in, because I saw it. And it was a number of jokes that I thought, you wouldn't get that past the network censor. There's no way. If this show were anywhere else but Netflix, or back in the day when it was started on Crackle, I think, then it wouldn't happen. And that's the idea, not apologizing for the joke. If we're going to do that, then you're going to have to go, someone like Mel Brooks is going to have to, you're going to have to call him out and cancel him for Blazing Saddles when you fail to see the point. We talked about it the other day on the show. The absurdity is where the humor lives. Mm-hmm. You're laughing at the ignorance of the character. That's what you're laughing at. And people today don't understand how comedy works.
And even, Norman Lear, who was well-known liberal, but when you look back at, and I always thought this with I almost said Married with Children.
All in the Family.
All in the Family. Mm-hmm. That I remember when it was on during the time, when it was in its first run. And I remember the media coverage of it was, that Archie was the idiot and he made it funny. And Archie was the one that was wrong. I remember thinking all the time, I said, well, that's not true. Michael's wrong all the time in analyzing things. Mm-hmm. And so I said, they're both wrong. Mm-hmm. I said, which is why I always enjoyed it, because and I think, and we talk about comedy in general, and again, the left, being upset now of any type of comedy. You wonder if Married with Children. Well, you wonder with Married with Children or All in the Family. I don't know why I'm mixing the two up. That you look at it and you say, well, yeah, it's funny because they're all flawed people. And some of the criticism comes, well, these people are ridiculous. Nobody would be that way in real life all the time. It's like, well, that's sort of the point.
Right.
You're exaggerating.
They're a character.
You're right. They're a character, and a lot of it is exaggeration, and probably you wouldn't see a lot of it in real life, but a lot of it you would. Mm-hmm. But I just always thought that All in the Family was great because they were both wrong. Mm-hmm. They were both wrong many times. Not all the time, but a lot of times they were both wrong. Mm-hmm. But there was also a humanity. The one I'll never forget is remember when they left, when Michael and Gloria left. Mm-hmm. It's funny because I haven't watched it in years, but it just stays in your brain. And Archie tells Michael he loves him.
Mm-hmm.
That was blew you away because you're like, wow.
Yeah.
And that was that was the genius of that show, is that you laugh like crazy at the absurdity of it all, but they did have, the moments. And even Edith at times when she would come out, because she was portrayed as being stupid.
Well, he called her dingbat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
one of my favorite lines from her, and I used it with my kids: drink all of your orange juice because you don't know what part the vitamin C is in. Just genius writing.
Yeah, it was genius, genius writing. But when you look at it, we had said this when the comedian started, first recognizing what was happening at college campuses, where it was going woke. And you and I had talked about the importance of stand-up comedians being fearless because they're part of the pop culture, which means they're viewed differently, for example, in the mainstream media than we are.
Mm-hmm.
They just ignore conservative talk radio.
Yeah,
or they will throw out stereotypes or whatever.
Yeah.
Do they really listen? No. But when it comes to comedians, everybody's exposed to them. And I do believe that the turn that you see in this country was really what ignited it, was the catalyst, was Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
I really believe that it was. I think that he has done this country a great service. He may not view it that way. Hey, I'm just telling jokes. But he is the one that, took all the shots.
Yeah.
He took all the arrows from the media coming his way, because he said, okay, if we're going to observe, we're going to observe everything.
Yeah.
And when you observe everything, people become uncomfortable.
Well, and he's the guy who's walked the walk. When he mentioned this in one of his stand-up specials on Netflix, and they went after him, and he used the proverbial, get off the bus thing. And he said, look, I'm the one who got off the bus and left $50 million on it.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Based on principle, he walked away from a massive, massive, massive deal. But, he built something based on stand-up. Seinfeld did the same. I know it's also Larry David's creation. But they built something on a craft that they honed. And when we talked Dave Chappelle, he was a teenager. His dad would drive him to do stand-up.
He did it very young.
So you look at that and how you build your craft in something that isn't easy. It's really hard. It doesn't pay. And it only pays if you make it like one of those guys. There's a ton of comedians that never reach that kind of, point. You wonder how they stay out there. Well, we can have that discussion. But there are, when he started to resonate with people, the left saw him as dangerous.
Yeah. Yep. Because he's in the world of pop culture.
And the fact of the matter is, there's no way to cancel someone like him. He can book his own venues, sell his own tickets.
Yep.
He can hire his own security. You can't stop him today. You can't.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up on the top of the hour, the majority say that the Biden Department of Justice makes the U.S. look like a banana republic, including 37% of Democrats. We'll get to that. New report out. Major League Baseball quietly tells teams that they can ditch their pride uniforms.
Oh.
This is happening across the board in many sports out there now. So we'll get to that. And the latest on the Biden scandal. Here's a headline: the Bidens coerced Burisma to pay $10 million in bribes, says a credible FBI source. So we'll get to that. And the 10 U.S. cities where 250,000 goes the furthest are all in the South.
Okay.
They use that number. They use that number in order to show the difference. They took an amount that was higher so you could show what your buying power is of 250,000 in the highest tax cities versus the lowest tax. Now, I will say I was pretty surprised at the difference in it, and I do have questions because the difference in the article is extremely great to the point where I went, really, it's that much? So we'll get to that and more on the way.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across the USA and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. Good morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you choose. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a Friday. Father's Day weekend coming up.
That's right.
And so I will be leaving a little bit later on today.
Mm-hmm.
Direct nonstop. Yes.
Yeah.
And I will see my dad. I come back Sunday night. I was supposed to come back Monday morning, but because we have a 3-day weekend.
Right.
I was supposed to come back Monday morning, but the direct nonstop, for some reason, American canceled. I can't figure out why.
Oh.
It's not like they canceled it, permanently. It's just for that day.
For that day.
And it was like, what?
Okay.
And so they had moved me to a direct flight later, or not a direct flight, but a where I had to go through, I forgot where it was. And I said, nope, I'm coming back on the direct flight Sunday night. So, but I'll get to spend, I'll be seeing my dad all the time now over the next 9 months.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going back for a ton of different reasons over the next, 8 months or so.
All right.
I'll be back a lot. So it'll be good to see Dad. He's doing good. He's doing really good. 97.
Yeah.
And I'll make sure I get a picture of him because everybody loves it when I get a picture of him.
Yeah.
And he's still doing great. I mean, he's still, he's actively involved in, still leading the family.
Mm-hmm. Good.
And so it's always great. And so we'll probably do our breakfast at our little place again. Marty's in Clarence Center, New York. Probably do that Saturday morning.
Yeah. I'll go see my dad on Sunday. 2-hour drive. That craft that I'll be in will make 2 stops. One for coffee, and then maybe one for gas. It's not a direct flight.
Oh, it's we've talked about our dads a lot on the show because and we always, it's not going to happen, but we always talked about the fact that wouldn't it be great if our fathers could meet, and what would that be like? What would the conversation be like?
Oh yeah, no, it'd be great. It'd be great. An engineer and a seasoned investigator.
Mm-hmm.
Call us when you're done, guys.
Could see it, and here we are, critical thinkers, and our sons end up as BSers on the air every day. Well, how the hell did that happen?
Yeah.
Didn't we raise him right?
So my sister gets on the group text and the siblings, hey, found a gift. You all want to go in? And the rest of us were like, oh, yeah, great, and thank you. That's very kind. So we all sent her the money. And the idea is that then you don't go get anything else, right? You don't try and outdo another sibling. But there was one gift that I came across that I had to get. And it's a coffee cup that says, my favorite child gave me this coffee cup.
Yeah, that's something I would do.
Yeah. I just laughed out loud when I saw it, and I thought, okay, I got to get it. He may not even use it, but I'm going to get it.
Well, it's
funny.
It's funny you say that because it got to Wednesday. Like, I got to get Dad something. I don't know what to get him. Mm-hmm. My sisters came through to save the day. And there's a bunch of different things that he needs, and we figured you would know. It's like, yeah. So why don't you give him this? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes. Isn't it? It's great having sisters for those moments.
Yeah. I normally I don't have any issues at all. In fact, I just hadn't gotten around to it. This was Monday or Tuesday when it went down, but she found something that was really nice that he would definitely like, and I know she wanted to get it. And so it's a great group gift. I'm usually pretty good at getting some gifts. On his birthday, I got him a new weather radio, and they still sell the ones with a crank.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I have one of those.
So it has a crank power. It also has a battery. It also has solar power on it, and it's more compact than the other weather radios from the past, and it was really neat. And I told my dad, I said, I'm going to let you test drive that one, then I might get one for me. And I got him this a couple of years ago, a really cool flashlight set, rechargeable flashlight, and this thing is so bright. But you can charge your phone from it. It does so many things, and right after I gave it to him and he opened it, I was like, man, I got to get one of those. So on the way home, I ordered one for me. I try and get those things where I know that like the weather radio, he can take out on his boat when he's fishing. Mm-hmm. He's normally in tune with the weather anyway, but you might want to just have it, right? And it's just kind of a more of he's a weather enthusiast.
If you're missing it, yesterday somebody was described. What were they described as?
It was what's her name from MSNBC that was described
as a Russiagate. Rachel Maddow. She's a Russiagate enthusiast. Yeah. That was it. That's okay.
And with Dad, it's I have the same interests. It's watching the weather, but also around the house, you have these cool little toys, and so usually it's something like that.
So I'm wearing this shirt actually to honor my father, and it says, "Nobody cares, work harder."
Yeah.
And that basically is an offshoot of DTJ, do the job. Mm-hmm. But that was, and I don't wear this out in public much because I'm afraid what do you mean? Are you saying I don't work hard? But I wear this.
What do you mean you don't care? You have to care. No, I don't.
It's like nobody cares, work harder, which is exactly what my father told me. Nobody cares about your problems. Go work harder.
Leave it at the door.
Yeah, leave it at the door. And that's what I got that from him. Everybody knows me. I got so much from him when I was, I still remember when I was 14 years old. So it had to be 1969 when he said to me, the world is not the way it is. You're not going to be able to get a job and have a job for 30 years. That's not going to happen. It's like, well, it almost is here. But he meant like in industry or, regular business.
Yeah, one career.
Yeah, one career. So that's, you're not going to have one career like so many people did. Yeah. And he said you need to be good at 3 or 4 different things. He said you need to be good at something trade-related, engineering-related, sales-related, and then what you love to do.
Yeah.
and you have and then you have a backup. And if you're going to do, when I got in this, you said, if you're going to do that, you better have a backup. But he was always, for me, and it's still a joke today. Somebody will probably bring it up, Gary, be an engineer, be an engineer, be an engineer, be an engineer, be an engineer. And I remember that moment when my father said, you need to stay in this, And that was when I was working just for a very, very short time, part-time at our great affiliate in Chicago, WLS. And my dad came up to this. My dad had some kind of steel conference in the city. And so he actually jumped into he had a limo that took him to the hotel. And the company was paying for it, so my father would never pay for a limo on his own. Mm-hmm. And he said, hey, could you turn my son's on the radio? Could you, turn him on? And the limo driver was already listening to me because we're not supposed to have it on in the car. But since you want to listen, that's what I was listening to. That's your son? Yeah. So my father came to this. He came to the I think he went to this hotel and then he came over to the radio station. Yeah. And he came up and they made him a cup of coffee and he sat in for like the last 2 hours of the show and just watched it. Yeah. And he had never done that before. Yeah. And we were driving back. He was coming back to my apartment for a while before he went back to his hotel. And I'll never forget driving back, and he said, just talking about stuff. And then it was maybe quiet for 5 seconds. He turned, he says, you need to stay in this. Huge moment in my life. Yeah. I always said I don't need my father's approval. Mm-hmm. You always were like, because he was, it was like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And I was in my 30s by that time. And he's like, you're not really making a lot of money. Why are you doing this? Mm-hmm. He says, you've got talents elsewhere. You should use those talents, to make money. And so he wasn't, as I tell him today, we laugh. I go, you weren't wrong. Mm-hmm. Nobody was wrong. It just happened to, it all happened just, to work out. But he said, he said, you need to do it. He said, he goes, you need to stay with us. And that was a huge moment. Maybe I didn't need it, but I'm telling you, once I got it, I realized I wanted it. Yeah, you want the approval. I wanted the approval of my father. Well, that's
when I started. The day I started, I was 18. My dad picked me up. My car was having the engine rebuilt, and he picked me up after my first full day. And he had WBAP, our flagship station, on the radio. Mm-hmm. And he said, unless, he goes, look, this radio thing might be something big, if you were like these guys. And he was listening to Hal J. and Dick Siegel. Back then, they did a split shift of mornings and afternoons. So we were listening to the afternoon show. And, he said, these guys have careers. I mean, they're in the big city. They've been doing it for a long time. He said, but this could be a great hobby. Maybe you should consider the military, law enforcement, and he went down the list. I said, oh, okay. I just kept showing up for work, and then years later, in the mid-'90s, ended up at WBAP and taking him a WBAP coffee cup that he still has today.
Wow, that's great.
And it's, again, he wasn't wrong. I almost, in fact, before I landed this gig, I was testing to become a police officer. And I got his advice. And he said, okay, if you want to do this, this is how you should do it. I think you should do it. He was military police and also taught law enforcement and criminal investigation. And there were a couple other things that basically swayed my opinion, including a hearing loss and some personal things. And then I landed this gig. One of the things that my dad said, look, you want to go through, and get your, go finish school, go get your degree in something and then specialize in something. And that way you can be a specialist in one field or the other in law enforcement. Otherwise, you're going to be working overnights when you're in your 50s. And here I am.
I think one of the really great moments of my life was when I went back to because I was in Chicago, I was in Rockford, then Chicago, and then I went back to Buffalo. To be a talk show host in my hometown, right. And my father was really proud. And to me, it was like almost, and he wasn't. He'd always say, "This is my son," but it would be like, "This is my son. He's a talk show host."
Yeah,
and to me, it was almost like he was saying, "This is Gary. He's a talk show host, and my son." And so I remember he would always throw in what I am, and I never forget. I got a little irritated one time. My mother goes, "Yeah, it's like it's just every time he introduces me, it's the talk show host and his son." And my mother looked at me and she said, "For God's sakes, your father is proud of you. You ought to be savoring this moment." And I went, it was like this thing went off in my head. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, what an idiot I am."
Yeah.
Thank you. And from that point on, I've always enjoyed every moment of it.
Yeah, sure.
So, but that was my mom. That was my mom, straightening my head out going, "What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Are you crazy? Your father's proud of you. He's completely, totally, he approves of everything you're doing. He's proud of you."
Right.
"Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Thanks."
Yeah, right.
What an idiot I am. Taking a positive moment and making it a negative.
Right, yeah.
But that's why parents are there to straighten you out.
Still today.
Well, and I tell people, because people that are much younger than me will say, "My parents, so are they going to be telling me what to do my entire life?" Well, yeah.
Yeah.
They're your parents.
Yep.
They'll always be your parents. You better get used to that. Just accept it and go with it.
I have adult children. They call me all the time.
Yeah.
Or I call them.
Yep.
And my dad's 90. My mom's 85. They call me all the time.
Yep. And I ask for Dad's advice. Always throw stuff by him all the time.
Yep.
At 97.
Oh, yeah.
So happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there.
Yes, absolutely.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara along with Eric Harley. Major League Baseball, this is Breitbart and Washington Examiner. Major League Baseball has quietly told teams that they can stop forcing players to wear uniforms and hats adorned with gay pride rainbow colors during their Pride Night games. The decision comes as the LA Dodgers are taking major heat for inviting the radical anti-Catholic hate group, the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, to its gay Pride Night game on June 16th. And also as several major corporations, including Bud Light and Target, are facing serious economic losses. The Tampa Bay Rays were the first Major League Baseball team to announce that players would not wear any rainbow color patches or jerseys during their June Pride game this year. But the league kept this change to its Pride celebrations very quiet since giving teams dispensation to dump the Pride colors and special jerseys back in February, according to the Washington Examiners. The Rays had trouble with Pride Night plans last year when several players balked at being forced to wear rainbow colors. At the time, several players rebelled against the Pride jerseys and refused to wear them during last year's Pride games. Not all teams are dumping the forced Pride uniforms. The LA Dodgers and San Francisco Giants have announced their intentions to continue wearing the Pride jerseys. There has been one team that has not been in the Pride business from the beginning.
Yeah.
The Texas Rangers, the only team that has consistently refused to indulge in any demonstrations of pride and has never scheduled any Pride Night games. Now, we know they're talking about American teams here. We know that the Toronto Blue Jays are completely enveloped in the whole Pride thing to the point where they even admitted the one player who came out critical about the Pride celebrations they cut. And they admitted part of it was the distraction he was causing.
Yeah, imagine that.
Yep. But that, again, Canada's a whole different ballgame.
Yep.
You can go to jail in Canada for not using the proper pronoun.
I wonder if they thought that player was more of a liability, not just a distraction. That there could be some kind of responsibility of the team to make sure that nothing was said. Because,
liability? Oh,
right?
Yeah. Might have been in
based on again their laws.
I've been paying attention to with the update of the laws in Canada. We'll talk more about this coming up.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric. I'm Gary. So you have the Major League Baseball there. Just reading that article, the Major League Baseball quietly tells teams that they can ditch the Pride uniforms. Pro baseball is not the only sport to see growing resistance to having Pride forced on players. Games in their sports, a growing number of NHL players and teams are also turning away from blatant expressions of the groomer agenda. Teams like the Chicago Blackhawks and the Buffalo Sabres have experienced issues with using Pride jerseys. In fact, when the Buffalo Sabres asked for me to give a review of what I thought, because I used to go to games when I lived there, and I used to go to some games when I was back. I haven't in years, but I'm still on the mailing list, and I told him, I said, you don't even know what you're representing. You have no idea what you're representing, the misogyny and the sexism that exists in the biological males can be biological females because they say so. I said, this is way beyond anything to do with, for people that may look at the Pride movement as, okay, the sacrifice of people that came along so we can have equality. It's to the point of promoting biological insanity and teaching sexualized content to 5-year-olds. That's what you're promoting. The disgusting perversion that exists there. And it was interesting because the political editor of Breitbart, and let me see, her name is Emma Jo Morse, is gay. Breitbart, and you can't get more conservative than Breitbart. And she wrote an article on it. And she wrote, I used to hate Pride, probably for all the same reasons any conservative scoffs at it. It's loud, obnoxious, overhyped, corporatized, sexualized, and an awkward holiday. But for me, it was also personal. Growing up conservative and proud to be an American, I rolled my eyes at the parades and flags. And then when it occurred to me as I got a bit older that I was gay myself, total dread, total horror. I have to be associated with that. I couldn't bear it. That display and cultural connotation kept me in the closet for almost 10 extra years, just being terrified.
Interesting.
Of people thinking that is who I am. I was offended by Pride. It was way too much attention focused on the one thing I saw as an impossible hurdle to the person I longed to be, which was just normal.
Yeah.
And she goes on to talk about what I just mentioned, the people that believe that Pride used to be, okay, those people that went before that died or were hurt or sacrificed in order to get what they believe are the rights that they deserve. And you look and say, okay, so it's not about celebrating what you are. It's a sacrifice that people made to do something that you view as good.
Right.
And that's what she's had discussions on it with other people that she recognizes, that she says that's what she recognizes as what Pride should be, but as she said, that's not what it is. And she said in the last roughly 15 years around gay marriage, Supreme Court ruling, and the broad social acceptance of gay people in relationships that set in around the same time, LGBTQ plus interest groups began to seek new frontiers of activism and fundraising. In that period, the political movement departed from its original mission of equal civil rights for American citizens who have an immutable trait in being homosexual, and in doing so embarked on a neo-oppression of gays by generating fake grievances and controversy on their behalf. Now, I would even go as far as to say that gay people are losing the ability to enjoy the rights so hard fought by those before them, because the political apparatus now won't let them, insisting instead on keeping their sexuality as a central focus and as a controversial issue. Wow. Then let me just, I want to get down to it here because it's a pretty long article, and I want to get to the point at the where it gets to. Okay. I'm just trying to get here. In 1996, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of protecting gays and lesbians from discrimination and ruled that sodomy laws were unconstitutional in 2003. In 2015, just 12 years after homosexuality was decriminalized, the Supreme Court issued the 5-4 decision declaring same-sex legal in all 50 states. The gay rights movement of the 20th century was so effective and so commendable because it appealed to American ideals. That was all Pride is ever about. Now, the LGBTQIAAP2S+, I put it in scare quotes because I do not see or understand why all the letters are smashed together to form a community of people with nothing really in common. Wow. But it's a political apparatus that's doing everything to undermine that message and creating a maximum cringe situation for regular gay Americans, pretending we're about being in everyone's face when that is not at all what the original activism ever sought. Now corporations are pandering by making pride collections, sometimes for children, and enlisting cartoon characters like Dylan Mulvaney as brand ambassadors. Now the government is waving gay flags at the White House in place of the American flag, and having branches of the military and intelligence agencies, even Lockheed Martin, producing pro-gay content. Now schools are putting on events discussing homosexuality and gender for students, sometimes in grade 3, grade 2, and pre-K. Children's shows, too, are raising the rainbow flag, including shows like Peppa Pig and Sesame Street, beloved by toddlers. Then you have the annoying dumb drama being gymmed up more directly by rights groups for no apparent reason other than fundraising and pestering the general public, like the Human Rights Campaign declaring a state of emergency for LGBTQ people in the United States. The United States, that would be the most free and tolerant and safe nation for gays on earth, of course. And all of this nonsense now does is patronize gays and create an unnecessarily difficult situation. In some cases, like mine for a time, it is actually preventing people from coming out who do not want to be drafted into the political battles that have nothing to do with equality or anything about daily life for that matter, or don't want to call attention to their sexuality as a defining characteristic. In other cases, it is isolating gays again in the backlash, as the general public has seen gay politics as a never-ending conquest for more and more privileges or an affront on children and the nuclear family. I'll never hang up a rainbow flag. I'll never wear a tie-dye or stripes or set foot within 100 yards of any parades. I also definitely think a month is a lot. But goes on to say, basically that the Pride movement has been co-opted as she doesn't get into what it's really been taken over by, which is the insanity of the transgender activist movement is what it's been taken over by.
And others have. They brought that to the surface and said, look, and we said it. Because this is exactly what you hear from others in LGBTQ. They're saying,
we have.
It's not Pride Month anymore.
Right.
It's Transgender Month.
And we have heard, whether it was the well-known gay activist, probably in his 70s now, who was, said there from the very beginning that this was not what he signed up for.
Right.
And that's the one thing that isn't being talked about here because, and we had said this a couple of months ago, that we hear from gay people who say, I'm afraid to, I can't even, I have to be completely quiet. I feel incredibly oppressed by the Pride movement.
Well, is it exactly what she said? She wrote, in the closet 10 years longer because I didn't want to be associated with it. And now, I mean, in 2023, that movement is gone.
Well, look,
forget whatever you thought it was to begin with. It's not that and won't ever be that again.
Well, Martina Navratilova, think about this. The gay movement and liberal feminism, for example, for women athletes, you can look at Martina Navratilova, sort of when they sort of paralleled in the 70s and 80s.
Right.
And all of a sudden, she was viewed as the hero for oppressed people.
Mm-hmm.
And now she's viewed as the oppressor.
Right.
And this is what's happening, and this is something that isn't being talked about because, as when listeners who write to us who say, look, I'm gay and the Pride movement is oppressing me.
Yeah.
That's mind-boggling when you read stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the fact is, we have stated that for the longest time.
Right.
And we said over 10 years ago, it will destroy the feminist movement and it will split the gay movement.
Yep.
And it has.
Yep.
To the point where they're afraid to speak. And as I say, it's not about even being gay anymore or fighting for civil rights anymore.
No.
This is about the insanity. And as we've been told, because we're gay, they expect that we're going to be in favor of teaching children sexualized content and we're in favor of biological men competing against biological women, and it's so far off where we stand.
Well, now you have a group called Gays Against Grooming.
Grooming, yeah.
And they've been vocal.
Yeah.
And that's very interesting. I don't know that I saw the backlash growing to this point so quickly. I mean, Martina Navratilova and a handful of others along the way. Now it just seems to be there is momentum in that direction.
There was I can't think of her name. Remember, she lesbian. Remember, she was on the Remember, she was on the council. She was against biological males, trans women being in prison with
right.
And she was viewed
with biological women, right?
What did I say?
No, I'm finishing her sentence.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, dear.
So that's not necessary.
And remember, she was blown away.
Oh, yeah.
That she was viewed as more violent than the actual rapist, the trans woman who went into a woman's prison and raped women.
Mm-hmm.
She was viewed as more violent than the rapist.
She was the oppressor.
Yep, she was the oppressor. That's the insanity of all of this.
If you look at something like that and you don't see how insane it is, then I don't know what to tell you. I don't think you're looking at it. I don't think you're paying attention. And now, thankfully, more people are. The one thing that as a parent, and I think you see a lot of non-parents now. This is what is especially encouraging. A lot of non-parents have joined the movement against grooming, against mutilation surgery for minors, because, we started with, the very clear message that a lot of the activists believed that they were just taking on the right. No, you're taking on the parents, and you're not going to win that. But now you're taking on people who support the parents, and they're not even parents. That's a good thing. That is a great thing.
Yeah.
When you have that kind of resistance to something that is so dangerous, that the current Department of Justice is fighting states for.
Right.
Wow.
The federal government, the Biden administration, is trying to pass laws saying if you don't allow children to make the decision to mutilate their bodies or take irreversible hormones, if the child isn't the decision maker because the parent and doctor cannot be,
right,
then we'll stop funding your hospitals.
Right.
We'll stop funding school lunches in your state. This is how insane the Biden administration is. Understand it. This isn't even debatable. This is insanity. 866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Drip, 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 drip. Now, James Comer says with bank records they believe that will be coming in, that they will get access to. He believes it's $20 to $30 million that the Biden family
I told you the
actually
number
made.
I have in my mind is 50, and I don't know why that is.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. Good morning. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Here we are. We made it to Friday. Man, you saw that tornado at that small town in the Panhandle of Texas.
Yeah.
Pretty bad. You know, we had expected. I mean, this has been a weird week. Yesterday, I read yesterday was tied for the most humid day in weather records in the DFW area.
Yeah. It was interesting and really strange watching the forecast changing almost every minute.
It was unbelievable.
Yesterday, actually, one local news station in their noon broadcast actually went to a break and came back and revamped their forecast for the afternoon. I mean, not for the next 10 days, but the next few hours. And you saw, watching some of the storms north and northeast of where we are right now, saw a picture of hail.
Oh,
it's bigger than grapefruit.
It's the biggest hail I've ever seen.
Yeah. And the last several days has produced hail in this area. I would like to know if that's a record in terms of the number of hail producing storms in one area.
I've been here 23 years, and I never had hail 3 days in a row. Mm-hmm. Now, it was light around me. Now, I did, from what I know, I missed out. I can't see it on my cameras anywhere. I know people within a couple of blocks of me got hit with baseball and softball size hail. From what I can tell, I did not.
Yeah.
And so I saw some people a few blocks over already getting their roofs repaired. I just replaced mine 3 years ago.
Right.
The last thing I want to do is do it again now. But if you get that kind of softball hail, that's major damage.
Right.
But I've never seen it 3 days in a row. Since I've been here 23, never had hail 3 days in a row, and every day I had hail. I mean, it was small. It wasn't a lot for me, but other areas got hit big time with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
From when I was home and from what I know, it didn't do much damage to my roof. But
it's been
other people,
a while since I've had anything above pea-sized hail at my house. And in the last 3 days, our area has had massive chunks of ice falling out of the sky. Yeah.
And you think about it because that, how I was reading that one thunderstorm, a small one that was, and really nobody else got hit. This is the one that really dropped the softball size hail within my subdivision, but from what I know, did not hit my house or my street. This thing was just a small cell that started like 100 miles southwest, and
a number of these cells have been. Yeah.
Just followed it all the way in. I'm like, well, that thing's coming. And then I'm getting ready to come into work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, uh-oh. I better jump in the car because I want to outrun this because they're talking about baseball and softball size hail, and they were talking about that this thunderstorm was 10,000 feet, then went up to 30,000.
Yeah.
Like that. I mean, just within minutes, which you talk about the power that is needed, to the energy that's needed to wait a minute, we live in a society that believes solar and wind can run the grid. So should I really talk about, does anybody, we're talking to my audience, so they do understand energy.
Mm-hmm.
But when you think about that how high, hail can fall from.
Yeah.
Softball size hail, I'm sure it's existed somewhere. Somebody's had to get killed by being hit with hail.
Yeah, I don't know the biggest piece of hail on record, but what I'm seeing out of just about 30 or 40 minutes north of here from last evening.
That's the biggest I've ever seen.
It's huge.
Yep.
Massive.
No, that was bigger than a softball.
Several years ago, my niece, her son pulled her car out of the garage to detail it for her. It was close to a birthday or Mother's Day or something. I think it may have been Mother's Day. And he goes back inside to clean up. And then all of a sudden a storm comes in like very quickly, and he wasn't expecting the storm, number one, and wasn't expecting the massive hail that destroyed her car. It destroyed her car. I mean, it took it, and it was too dangerous right away. It was too dangerous to go outside and try and move it.
Yeah, yesterday was a weird day. This entire week has been, because I thought maybe we had a little bit Sunday and then it was done.
Mm-hmm.
And every single day it was only like 15% chance, and all of a sudden it was like, no, we're going to get a storm. And yesterday I was like, okay, I can do some work around the house, and I want to put down some weed killer, and I really don't want a lot of rain, but they say really no rain.
Right.
Well, by the time it got to by the afternoon, they had completely changed the forecast, where it showed, the future radar showed a huge, system moving in that was going to have, and all of a sudden they increased it, the severity of the hail and tornado warnings and everything else.
Yeah.
And you saw this, you go, oh my God, this thing's supposed to hit about 6:45. I'm thinking to myself, I'm not going to be able to get to sleep, or I'll be sleeping an hour and wake up. Well, I went to sleep at 5 o'clock. And it looked like this huge, I wanted to get a couple hours sleep at least to be able to come into work. Because I said, if this thing hits, there's no way. Nothing where we are. Everything went up north.
Yeah, right.
But that huge, it looked like it was like 300 miles, long, this future radar coming in, this front coming in, and that really never developed. And that changed within an hour.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so they talked about the dew point being, which is how you look at worst humid days, being tied for the highest ever.
Mm-hmm.
And believe me, the last couple of days you go out and you do any yard work in the outside.
And I did.
Oh, man, because you're not, let's put it this way, your sweat is not evaporating.
Yeah, no.
And so you're not being cooled down at all. Your body's cooling process isn't working. And, man, it got hot quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
That was the worst I've ever felt. And I've been to Houston a couple times.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but we just hope any of the people, I know there were a bunch of I didn't see any reports yet, just northwest of us where we are, where there were a couple of tornado warnings last night. I didn't hear about any significant damage being done by any rotation.
Yeah, watching some come in right at the Red River at one point, and there were multiple, both detected by radar and spotted on the ground. And that entire massive cell that was moving, basically coming out of Oklahoma into Texas, was scary to look at it on radar.
It was, yep. Mm-hmm.
So hopefully those folks that were in the path of that storm are okay.
Yeah. So is it over? It looks like it's over.
Well, I think we're moving out of this, whatever this system that has been locked in place. It looks like in the forecast we're going to dry out for a bit, but I'm not a forecaster, and even the forecasters haven't been great lately because it's just been totally unpredictable.
It's just, I guess what they would say is it's just that unstable. The atmosphere is that unstable. It's for such a wide area.
In the past, and you talk about the difference between dry lines. If a dry line is moving through, you can kind of measure that and say, okay, here's where, or they can measure that and say, here's where these storms are going to pop up. We believe the energy will be perfect as this dry line moves through.
And I've seen a lot more accuracy on those dry line predictions than I saw this week.
Yeah, because I don't think we were really dealing with dry lines. It was a different energy basically that was pushing these, and it just seemed to be locked in this region for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Just
wow,
hanging out over us. I've seen a couple of meteorologists last week that said, okay, this is going to be the system that plays over and over again right here in this area, and they were right in the general area. But I think it's just too hard to predict where every little storm is going to pop up. It just becomes impossible. Yeah, changing forecasts on the fly, really.
What a week.
Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, it was crazy.
All right, coming up, the latest on the Biden bribe probe. We played the audio earlier.
Mm-hmm.
He's getting irritated.
So now they believe that it's up to, with the Biden family, they believe it's up to as much as 20 million, maybe more?
As much as 30 million.
30
from
million.
Foreign nationals is what Comer said yesterday on Fox.
I had,
Business.
for some reason, I don't know why, I had 50 million in my mind.
Well, you may be right.
We're getting closer to that 50 million every day.
Yeah.
Every single day we get closer to it.
And I think the other thing that Comer's brought out, which we'll play actually some audio from him coming up, is where he talks about the fact that even the special counsel, nobody knew until Comer came out with this. Nobody knew. He said that nobody his sources tell him from the FBI, nobody was investigating these LLCs and the FBI. Nobody was investigating the money transfers to the Biden family. That what he's saying is everything was shut out from the FBI. The investigators are actually working on it. That's what he's being told. Until he started coming forward with everything, that's where they went, this is happening?
And if you had all those SARs, then how were they not following up on those?
Because we knew about those. Those we publicly knew about.
Right.
So that's the one thing that doesn't make sense. If you know about it, why aren't you investigating it?
Right.
But we'll hear.
And it's not just one or two. You had a number of them. And why would you not follow up?
Like 150.
Yeah, right, exactly. That's not a, again, one or two you might follow up on and go, okay, nothing here.
Right. So we'll get to all the new information that came out yesterday. Coming up, 866-90 Red Eye.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller. and I'm here to share a tip on speed and space management. Due to safety concerns, many motor carriers have policies that limit or prohibit the use of cruise control. If your motor carrier does allow you to use cruise control, you should only use it in good driving conditions during daylight hours and on roads that have light traffic, few curves or hills, and a consistent speed limit. Never use cruise control when operating in adverse driving conditions, including wet, icy, or slippery roads, during rush hour in heavy traffic or on congested highways, at night, or when you're tired or fatigued. During all of these driving scenarios, you want to be controlling and adjusting your speed as you drive instead of having to suddenly brake if you encounter an obstacle. In the case of a slippery road surface, you want to be able to slow your vehicle by not accelerating instead of using the brakes whenever possible. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Drip, drip, drip every day. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer on Thursday teased that new bank records his panel expects to obtain will reveal that the Biden family has accepted as much as $30 million now from foreign nationals. We have more bank accounts coming in. We're going to exceed $10 million this week, and I think we'll get up to between $10 and $20 million. Comer told Fox Business when asked how much money the committee has identified as being obtained by President Biden's family members from overseas sources. And they go on to identify what he has identified previously before the 9 members. Here he is on Fox Business yesterday and talking about this. Was also some new information out there that people may not have heard.
Informant tells the FBI. And what my sources in the FBI tell me is that whether it's the FBI, the DOJ, or the IRS, anything pertaining to Joe Biden or his family, they were told to stand down. So the people in the FBI didn't even know about the shell companies the Bidens had or the money laundering the Bidens had until I had my press conference about 6 weeks ago with members of my committee, the House Oversight Committee, and told the American people and showed evidence of all these shell companies and all this money laundering. That is when the whistleblower said, "Oh my God, I remember this accusation," and no one in the FBI investigated it. What we've presented to the American people in the House Oversight Committee adds legitimacy to this allegation from the oligarch.
Now, again, what I get from him there is that when he brought out all the the shell companies, right. Is that what he's claiming brought the whistleblower forward, or was the whistleblower already? Because the whistleblower is the informant who already dealt with the FBI.
Right.
And then all of a sudden the whistleblower, all of a sudden this comes forward now. Did he come forward to Grassley and Comer because of that? That wasn't specifically asked. She went right over that. That would have been my next question. You mean the whistleblower just came forward because he heard you? That's what it seemed like what he was stating there. And...
Well, one thing I did wonder is about the whistleblower situation is that there are a number of people that know the truth about the investigation. We've always said for every whistleblower, there could be, who knows, 10, 20 others that want to do the same and fear for their job. But if a case gets momentum, could you have more? Knowing that the truth is coming, to the surface, that there is a greater likelihood that you would not be retaliated against, you would not lose your job. The more we learn the truth, the greater the opportunity for any others who want to be a whistleblower.
when we know that there's, and goes back over a month, maybe 2 months, there were at least 12.
Right.
On variety of different weaponization things of the Department of Justice. You know, you had the 4 FBI agents that testified that one day. You had the one female FBI agent, the one with the blonde hair that also resigned and then testified. Right. Yeah. And she testified alone, though. The other 4, they all testified, together. That was the FBI agent that, said, I was sitting outside of school. Right. Taking parents' license plate numbers.
Right.
And so that doesn't directly relate to the Biden investigation here. What I find interesting, and this is a question that we've asked, because Comer said it. Almost said Comey. Comer said it. By the way, there's a difference between Comer and Comey. But what Comer said, they haven't investigated this. That the FBI, with what the whistleblower has brought forward, they haven't investigated any of this. And that's why the whistleblower, one of the reasons the whistleblower came forward is the realization that Comer was on it, and they hadn't investigated this at all. This was
okay.
And that's why.
Then I got to know about Horowitz. Where's the IG?
I agree.
Where's the IG on this? We've been asking that for a while, but now I really want to know what the IG knows and what happened after it went through the IG's office.
The Bonus Show.
It's Friday Radio. He's Eric. I'm Gary. Yeah, this is really getting interesting. As I said, the problem for the president is drip, drip, drip every day. And since it's drip, drip, drip every day, and every time you go, whoa, because not only is it again the allegations extremely serious, and now the quote circumstantial evidence, because the thing is we already know the payments have been made.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about this politically that's so damning, and we said this yesterday, is that none of the information, this isn't like going after Trump in Russia collusion, where it was all allegations from Democrats that were never specific allegations, but it continued. All of the evidence that exists so far are not allegations from Republicans. It's from Hunter's laptop, from bank records, and the FBI. None of it is just an that's a huge problem, because all the evidence that exists, you can't, and that's why the Democrats are so quiet. They can't sit there and say the Republicans are making these allegations, because the Republicans are only making questions and allegations based on the evidence that exists that came from Hunter Biden, the FBI, and banks reporting under a system created by the government to show suspicious transfers of money.
This isn't even some investigative reporter coming out saying these things exist. The evidence that we have so far. And the tone did change when you saw Director Wray come to Capitol Hill. And when we learned what was essentially redacted versus what Comer and Grassley had already seen. There weren't many people defending the president, but he did have his defenders. At the very least, they were saying things like, nah, there's nothing there. Just kind of a general dismissive, don't look over there thing. There's still some of that in the media, but on Capitol Hill, I don't hear any Democrats loudly coming out saying, stop this. This is wrong. The president didn't do anything wrong. There's no defenders on Capitol Hill for him. And I think a lot of them, number one, We go back to how many people have known about this, that question. And then even those that weren't in office then, that didn't know about it, that maybe they've heard about it, but they look at the situation for what it is, what we know so far, and they say, I don't want to step out in front of that. That's a bullet train, and I'm not going to do that for him.
Well, and you look at the example, the one person that did come out immediately, he was burned big time, Jamie Raskin.
Yeah.
He was burned big time. You're lying about that.
Right.
And so then you didn't hear much from him anymore, so it's like, where do we go on this? And sitting in the back of everybody's mind is the Obama statement.
Yep. Never underestimate the ability of Joe Biden to F things up.
But I thought interesting what came from Comer is now he's absolutely clear. He's saying the FBI did not investigate this document. And the thing is, we're being told now every single day I seem to get more response from Republicans saying that, and Comer said this yesterday on Fox Business News, that this is what they were talking about is this may be one of the most credible informants that's ever worked for the FBI in a variety of administrations, all the way back to Obama.
Wow.
And one of the most effective ones, and nobody's debating it. Nobody is. And the first thing Democrats would do is you attack the whistleblower. You attack the informant. You do something, and they haven't been able to do anything. But Comer stating that the FBI really they have squashed the investigators, and kept the evidence from them. And you and I asked a question a long time ago: is that obstruction of justice? If there's an investigation going on,
well, because
and you're at the top leadership of the FBI, and you are holding evidence that you have that will change the course of the investigation, is that obstruction of justice?
All right. So from what we've learned of the process of the whistleblower process, it eventually gets to the IG's office, right? And while the IG is not going to take on the criminal investigation, the IG is going to look for wrongdoing inside or protect the whistleblower, set up, a situation where the whistleblower is not retaliated against, and look to see if anybody on the inside did something that they weren't supposed to do with an investigation, which is why the whistleblower would come forward, right? That would tell us a lot. Now, the investigation on the crimes itself, right, on the bribes, if that went nowhere after all those SARs, if they just buried that in a box, I mean, that would make sense. That would, if you were on the inside, you would say, well, wait a minute, they're burying this thing. So it's the key between those two, between the informant or between the whistleblower and the top, is the IG. Because the IG, it's in the process of the whistleblower process. The IG receives the complaint by the whistleblower. And then it has, I think it's 30 days to acknowledge, okay, we've received this complaint, and then they follow up on it. But it would establish a number of these items.
But did he go to the IG first? Or did he go to Grassley
eventually
first?
It gets to the IG.
Right.
Well, okay, hold on a second. Now you bring in a whole new question.
Sorry.
Did someone not deliver it to the IG?
Well,
I feel like I'm the only one who's asking about Horowitz.
Yeah.
I would love for Comer or Grassley or any of them looking into it on Capitol Hill to address that. Mm-hmm. Because the process dictates that it gets to the IG's office.
Well, by the way, I do believe it is. For example, if it's gone to a special counsel, and from what we know, from what Comer was saying, the special counsel investigating Biden did not know about this document.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so if that document is being hidden or kept in a place where nobody can see it under the authority of someone high up in the FBI, is that obstruction of justice? Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes, that at that point it is, because it's a separate investigation.
Well,
now, if you're the chief investigator or heading the investigation, and you keep pertinent material out, is that obstruction of justice? Yes.
And if that document was being hidden, was it also being hidden from the IG?
Well, the IG might not have known about the document while they were he's not privy to investigations going on. He only investigates wrongdoing. A lot of the wrongdoing that they're looking at most of the time is not something like this, but it's where the money goes.
But the nature
where the
of
money
the
is being
complaint,
spent.
would it not include that?
Well, yeah. Well, when the complaint came from the whistleblower, it was about the document. So then the IG would know the document existed.
Right.
And
that's my question.
Right. I thought you meant previous to the whistleblower.
Right. No.
Because he's probably, the IG isn't privy to every investigation that goes on.
Right.
But now that the allegations are out there, you would sit there as an IG and say, well, I have to look at possible obstruction of justice if they were keeping this from, remember, the special counsel who was looking into Hunter Biden and everything. Because what they were trying to, what we've been told is even the IG, not the IG, excuse me, that the special boy, it gets complicated, doesn't it? That the special prosecutor was only looking at Hunter Biden. That was the narrative you got from Democrats.
Right.
Nobody's looking at Joe. Joe hasn't done anything wrong. It's simply Hunter Biden.
Right.
Well, if he's only looking at Hunter Biden, then you can say, well, either he's ignoring evidence in front of him or he never received that document that's been kept hidden from him.
Mm-hmm.
Because if that document exists, you have no choice, because Hunter Biden leads. This is where we talked about the polling that says 53, and this goes back a month ago, 53% of Americans believe that Biden is dirty.
Mm-hmm.
And that he took, he's been involved in illegal influence peddling. 63% believe Hunter is, which you have to laugh, because there is no influence peddling for Hunter.
Right.
He can't give you anything.
Yeah. Right.
Well, the only thing that he can give you
is a painting or some crack.
Or his father's influence.
Oh, there's that.
Yeah, so it's 63% believe it's the father, which is Joe Biden. And so, we said that's a huge problem. Then this article came out, Margot Cleveland yesterday, Federalist.com. The Bidens allegedly coerced a foreign national to pay them $10 million in bribes, according to individuals familiar with the investigation into the FBI's handling of it. It wasn't how it was initially framed, which was
they were approached.
That he was paying them the money as sort of a retainer,
right? And
it was volunteered by Slovetsky, the Burisma founder. This news story is saying, no, it was coerced by the Bidens. And it said, what, if anything, agents did to investigate these explosive claims remains unknown. However, with sources telling the Federalist that the FBI continues to stonewall, on Monday, Grassley revealed a foreign national identified by individuals with knowledge of the matter as the Burisma founder, allegedly possessing 17 recordings implicating Biden's in a pay-to-play scandal, while 15 of the audio recordings consisted of phone calls between Slovetsky and Hunter Biden. 2 of the calls with the Ukrainian was with Vice President Joe Biden, according to the document. The Federalist has now learned that the document reported that the source saying the Bidens coerced Slovetsky to pay the bribes. Sources familiar with the investigation also explained the context of Sloveski's statements, and that the context further bolsters the confidential human sources reporting. In the form from June 30th, 2020, the confidential human source summarized earlier meetings he had with Sloveski. According to the confidential human source, in the 2015 and 2016 timeframe, the human source was providing advice to the president of Burisma to stay away from the Bidens. Then after Trump defeated Hillary Clinton in 2016, the confidential human source asked him if he was upset Trump won. Sloveski allegedly told the human source he was dismayed by Trump's victory, fearing an investigation would reveal his payments to the Biden family, which included a $5 million payment to Hunter Biden and a $5 million payment to Joe Biden. According to the CHS, the Burisma executive bemoaned the situation, claiming the Bidens had coerced him into paying the bribes, which, by the way, this is what makes sense here, because when the first one came out was sort of that he was saying, well, yeah, $5 million, and they didn't put it in exact context, but I got the impression that, okay, he might have offered it to the Bidens because it was put in there that it was sort of like a retainer to hold the Bidens. So it was like, okay, well, then you paid the Bidens and then you took you taped the phone calls to protect yourself? Well, you initiated it. Takes a whole different ball game.
If he was coerced by the Bidens.
He was coerced by the Bidens, and that's why he did the phone calls to protect himself later on, which may mean if the tapes exist, he might be more likely to cooperate with the FBI because basically he was being blackmailed by the Bidens to give them the money.
And on top of that, it also would mean that the president is currently more compromised with those tapes being out there.
866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Now I understand yesterday why, when I was telling you I was watching, it was like a half hour long. It was Dick Durbin, and then it was Grassley, it was Kennedy, and it was Lindsey Graham. Having a discussion on it. And as I told you, I mean, you all could look at it and go, okay, this is a very deliberative body because it's the Senate, because everybody was very calm, including Durbin, who was not making strong points, and every single Republican, but in a very calm way, was making absolute slam dunk points. I'd play it, but it's like a half hour long, and I haven't been able to find anything to give you a context of how it went that whole half hour, but it was pretty awesome.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.